Hello folks, welcome back to my channel. Well, my original plan today was to go up to Wales at Brecon Beacons and have a walk in the hills up there. But a few days ago I just tweaked my back a little bit and I figured that sitting in a car for 4 hours kind of wasn't the greatest thing to do really. There was a risk that when I got there I wouldn't actually be able to get out the car. So instead of that I've come to the South Downs for a Wildcamp. So yeah, time I got cracking, I guess. My name's John and I make videos on camping, walking and astronomy. If you like what you see in this video, then please check my channel out, as you may find others that interest you there. But in the meantime, let's crack on with this video. So I'm on a Iron Age hill fort at the moment. It's a very big fort actually, not as big as say Maiden Castle in Dorset, but nonetheless it's still pretty big. And I'm on one of the flanks. The fort's I think from about 400 BC and it was occupied for about 300 years. So yeah, it's quite an interesting place to come. Lots of ramparts and ditches and that sort of thing. The thing making this trip a bit more exciting is the first of two storms this week is coming through. By far the worst one is the second storm, but nonetheless this one's got apparently 50-mile-an-hour gusts in my location here. I'm in my Vango Torridon 200 tent, so it'll be interesting to see how that holds up. I also want to have a little look at my Exped Synmat Basic 7.5 sleep mat that I've had for 3 years now, so I thought I'd do like a long-term review of that. But now I need to get my tent up. Well, that was easily the most challenging conditions I've ever put a tent up in. I reckon it must have taken me 40 minutes or so to get the tent up. All I can say is I'm really glad I tied it with one of its guy lines to my rucksack, because it just kept yanking the pegs out and trying to blow away. But anyway, I'm in now. I think this is probably pushing this tent to its limits, to be honest. This is a bit more Hillyberg type territory, or geodesic dome or something like that, I think. This is semi-geodesic. And although it's nominally a 4-season tent, you know, it's intended for valley use really at 4 seasons and not 40 and 50-mile-an-hour type winds. But anyway, I'm in now, so we'll see how we go. And yeah, I'm going to get the inside of the tent sorted out, and I'll show you this sleeping mat while I'm setting it up. So this is my mat then. It's the Exped Synmat Basic 7.5 and it's my favourite mat. I've had it for about 3 years now, and it's a 4-season mat. It's got an R rating of 4 and a suggested minimum temperature of -11. I've had it down to -4 I think, with no problems at all. The only thing against it is it's a little bit chunky, as you can see against the size of my hand here. You know, it could be a lot smaller, but the reason it's so chunky is it's made from quite robust material. I think it's 75 denier material, so that's quite good at puncture resistance and stuff. I still always take with me a roll mat to put underneath it, partly to protect against punctures coming up from the base of the tent, and partly if it ever did fail I would at least have something underneath me. So I'll get it out now and we'll blow it up. So there are 2 valves on the mat. One is a deflate, which is on the right, and one is at inflate on the left, and it's possible to blow this up by mouth. It takes about a minute and a half, but it is a bit tiring. The thing that I've got against blowing it up by mouth, really, unless I have to, is you're blowing a load of kind of moist air into the mat, and the mat's got insulation in it, and I don't quite know what the moisture in your breath would do to that insulation. So I tend to use a pump, which I'll show you in a minute, something I got quite recently. Prior to that, I was using something called a schnozzle, which is like a giant airbag that's used to blow the mat up. But anyway, I'm going to connect my pump and get it blown up now. So there we are. That's the mat pumped up. It's 183 centimetres long by, I think, 52 wide, and it's fairly thick, probably 3 inches thick, I would guess. The interesting thing about this mat is the baffle tubes run longitudinally down the mat, and I quite like this because the outer two baffles, this one here and that one there, is slightly larger diameter than the inside ones, so this kind of acts as a little bit of a wall to stop you sliding off the mat, if you like. And I'm a side sleeper, so typically yeah, I used to slide off other mats. And as I mentioned earlier, there is insulation inside this mat. It's artificial insulation, or man-made I should say, rather than down. They do a down mat. I think it's called the down mat rather than the Synmat, but I'm quite happy with this. Yeah, so I've had this mat for 3 years now and I'm very pleased with it. So now I'm going to get the rest of the tent sorted out. You'll have no doubt gathered it's extremely windy outside, and yeah, I just want to get myself sorted out and then start thinking about doing some cooking or something. Well, that's me more or less sorted. My sleeping bag tonight, I brought the Berghaus Elevation 600, which is a down bag and goes down to about -1 degree as a comfort value. So for me, that's more like 1 or 2 degrees. It's actually amazingly mild at the moment. It's incredibly windy, but amazingly mild. And the nighttime temperature is going to be something like 7 degrees or 8 degrees, I think, which for the middle of February is quite amazing. So this bag's definitely gonna do the business for me there. Wind speeds at the moment, according to the various apps on my phone, are gusts of 50 to 55 miles an hour, and topping out at 60 miles an hour in about 2 hours time, and then dropping back down to sort of 50 overnight. So I'm sincerely hoping that this tent survives okay. If the worst comes to the worst, I can just bail out. I'm only 20 minutes walk from the car, so it's not really what I want to do, but I would do if I had to. But in general, unless it's a catastrophic failure of the tent, I suspect you're better off sitting it out inside your shelter than wandering around in the pitch black. But anyway, let's hope it doesn't come to that, and get my tea on. Cooking in the tent in these conditions is far from ideal, but I'm sitting right on top of the stuff, and there's a goodly amount of headroom above me and lots of room to one side. So I'm not particularly worried, but obviously you've got to keep my eyes peeled on the cooking stuff. The only other problem, I guess, is it's going to chuck in a load of condensation. But I've opened the door a little bit to try and let some of it out. And that's dinner tonight. Something to eat: chicken tikka with rice. I've had it before, it's quite nice. Just needs rehydrating. And I've got to remember to take the little sachet out of it, which is something that I nearly always forget. These dinners never look very attractive, sort of like mush really, but in actual fact this one's quite tasty. So that's my dinner done, and yeah, interestingly the winds don't seem to be as bad as what they were an hour or so ago. The peak of the storm here is supposed to be in another hour, where the winds are supposed to hit 60 miles an hour gusts, but yeah, it seems to be dying off now, so that's good. So it's time for pudding. Today, normally I'll bring a like a chocolate sponge pudding-y thing and boil it all up and stuff, but I knew it was going to be windy, so I wanted to minimise the use of my stove, since I knew I'd be doing it kind of in the tent porch, if you like. So it's just a big bar of dairy milk chocolate, but very nice it is too. And yeah, more importantly, it's extra special dessert of some posh rum. About a month ago I decided I needed to have a clear out of assorted tents. I only live in a little 2-bedroom house, and like many of you watching, you just accumulate gear over the years. So I had these 3 tents, a 1, a 2 and a 3-man tent, that were really surplus to my requirements. I wasn't using them anymore, and I wondered what to do with them, and in the end I ended up giving them to one of the local scout groups, the 9th Hawley Scout Group, because I wanted to give them to people who'd actually use them rather than just sell them on for a profit on eBay. So I was very pleased to give them those tents, and yeah, much to my surprise, a couple of weeks later they sent me via a couple of my colleagues, Chris and Aaron, like an engraved hip flask and some very posh rum to use on my Wildcamps. Yeah, so I'm absolutely delighted. So I'd like to thank them for that, and thank Aaron and Chris for making the suggestions and doing the organising and stuff. Absolutely fantastic. I've got a couple of these Yak Trax hand warmer things, and yeah, I'm just going to open them up and chuck them in the bottom of my sleeping bag. I think they'll act a bit like a hot water bottle. They last about 8 hours based on my sort of experience using them sort of on the bike and hill walking and stuff. So yeah, they should keep the bottom of my sleeping bag nice and warm for the whole night, really. It's still fairly windy, but the skies have cleared a bit, so I'm going to nip outside and see if I can get a few nice pictures of the tent with the stars in the background. Well, that's a bit of astro stuff done. It's nearly 11 o'clock now. I hope the worst of this storm has gone by. Tent's still up, so I'm hoping that it just stabilises out and lasts the rest of the night. So yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of a nightcap now. I'm a bit sozzled, to be honest, but never mind. Hopefully the tent won't collapse in the middle of the night, because I wouldn't be able to drive home if it did. And anyway, I shall be calling it a day soon, and unless anything disastrous happens, I shall see you in the morning. Good night. Morning, folks. Well, I'm still here. I'm still hopefully in the same place as I was that I went to sleep in last night. I'm going to look outside the tent in a minute, but yeah, all things considered, I had quite a good night. It was a bit noisy for a while, but it did sort of calm down a bit around 2ish in the morning. So yeah, with a bit of luck, the tent's still okay on the outside, and everything survived the night. But I'm going to stick my head out and go and have a look now. That's the seaside down there. And that over there, that's Chanctonbury Ring. Which is another hill fort. What a glorious morning. Still a little bit windy, but nothing like it was yesterday. It's 8 o'clock now, so I'm going to get myself packed up. I've seen a dog walker go by, so I think it's time that I broke camp and headed back to the car. So yeah, tent survived, which is great. I'm well impressed with that actually, because it's not an expensive tent. It's a shame you can't get it anymore. But yeah, on that note, I shall bid you cheerio, and I shall see you next time. Take care.